We were talking last time about James Scott's paradoxical thesis about civilization, that we assume the state form to be the culmination of a kind of civilizing process in history. But in fact, the state form was never even really intended in the first place, that it's sort of a self propagating structure of social power that's related to the technology of writing. Kafka's Parable describes this civilizing process in just a single generation. This transition from loyalty, childlike loyalty to kings. What's childlike about preferring to be a courier? I think it speaks to the child's desire to believe in magic and something bigger than themselves, right? What's so interesting and chilling about Kafka's Parable is it's written from the perspective, this resentful perspective of the miserable existence itself, kind of blaming the children. It's this adult resentment of not just that their existence is miserable, but they resent the children for believing in kings. They've lost any ability to relate to enchantment other than resentment. So this kind of zombie effect of the state form, I think, is part of the thesis of Adorno and Horkheimer in the Dialectic of Enlightenment, of which I gave you a short but dense excerpt. I know this is impenetrable writing. Not everybody has a taste for it or need have a taste for it. I happen to have a taste for it. I spent 2 years in Germany to read philosophy like this, and it's interesting comparison to Kafka's simple, even childish parable. The density of this writing. There's a actual kind of poetics to it, if you ask me. You know, there's a monk-like aspect to this Hegelian kind of argumentation, just sort of transcribing all the movements of consciousness in these dialectical patterns, developments. You know, it's sort of like church scribes transcribing arcane arguments. This is in the name of the enchantment of the body. That's what's so wild about it. It's informed by Hegel and Marx and Freud and Nietzsche. Principally, what's wild is they're build on Nietzsche's thesis about the original primacy of myth over rationality that's rooted in music. And Nietzsche's really a astonishing argument. Nietzsche's such a fascinating figure, total prodigy, youngest full professor ever, and the son of a preacher. His first book was to totally demolish the foundation on which classical philosophy, art, and culture is founded, by saying that ancient Greek tragedy, Sophocles, is a derivative, but even more so a betrayal of ancient Dionysian ritual. Betrayal because it intellectualizes what was a cathartic art, music, dance, fantasy, intoxication, but a practical, festival, communing with these mythological figures in these, rituals of music, intoxication, and awareness of death. That's a, dimension of these mythological figures. But these rituals were betrayed and moralized by classical dramatic tragedy, which always results in an explicit, articulate, tragic wisdom. It's a vestige of the ancient Dionysian ritual in the chorus, the sort of godlike voice and of song. But this movement toward codifiable lesson, so a lesson in writing. This is the beginning of enlightenment. to make wisdom codifiable, wisdom about the passions reduced to writing, kind of obedience to the text. And for Nietzsche, this is the basis of the same problem that he identifies as slave morality in Christianity. The culture of obedience to the law is a culture in which self-suppression is recognized as a strength. That's how he understands the sort of revolutionary genius, poetic genius of Jesus, is to invent a new strength of grace. There's a powerful poetry to that. But in the Christian church, this becomes mere submission, not a poetic strength, but a Protestant work ethic, paying penance in this life basically for salvation in the afterlife. And you can see how this correlates with population growth, with this massive state form, this self-imposed kind of matrix-like slave morality. Although Nietzsche is known for his bombastic language, I want to emphasize that his strong language about slave morality isn't, you can almost read it as a Kafka childish fable. He's talking elsewhere, he diagnoses later, in his later writings, he diagnoses the illness, just a civilizational illness. And it's just kind of like he's looking with innocent eyes at a pet dog or cat and just looking at this animal. It doesn't look healthy. And there's that's sort of that musical dimension. It's lost its music. So he really doesn't want to judge. One of my favorite passages in Nietzsche is, I don't want to judge. I don't want to accuse even the accusers. To recognize a more diverse variety of wisdom than our, Christian moral, right, wrong, logical categories accommodates. And this is, they describe in the figure of Odysseus, this is about the relationship of the mind and body, of Odysseus's sort of self-sacrifice for the sake of knowledge. That's how they just interpret his encounter with the sirens, that he sacrifices himself. His experience of sexuality is turned into something to understand. He becomes a specimen for his own knowledge. Adorno and Horkheimer write, men pay for the increase of their power with alienation from that over which they exercise their power.